Hello, my name is Nicholas Snow, and today we're going to be going through the 5 mistakes that people make when getting into car audio. Before we get to the video, I want to say thank you guys for showing support for the channel. We've seen a lot of great conversations in the comment section. If you have any questions, don't be scared. Feel free to ask them in the comment section. I'll make sure to reply to them. And if we get a good response about a question, then I'll go ahead and make a video about it. This channel's for you guys, so I want to answer your questions about anything you guys have. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and jump into the video. Starting off with number 1 is going to be picking the right gear. And what we mean by that is making sure that the gear we're picking is adequate for the space that we have. So if we are running a sedan that has a pretty average sized trunk, we don't want to try to cram 2 15s into that trunk because the airspace is not going to be enough for those subwoofers. So for that example, it would be better to maybe run 2 10s, a single 12, just depending on the airspace. So we want to make sure that we're picking the right gear for that. And that goes along with the amplifier as well. When we're looking at our subwoofer that we're picking out, we want to look at the RMS rating. And that's the power that it can handle consistently over time. We want to make sure that the amplifier power matches up with the subwoofer that we pick. Number 2 on the list is going to be making sure that we have adequate electrical system in our vehicle. And what that means is looking at potentially, depending on the size of the system that you're going to be running, you want to look at things like your alternator, and you want to look at batteries and the size of wiring that you're using. So if we're running, a single 8, we can probably get by with using a different gauge wire. Yeah, we might not be able need to run, maybe 0 gauge. We can run maybe 4 gauge or 8 gauge. But if we're going to run 2 15s, 4 15s, something that's going to draw a lot of power, we want to make sure that we're running that thicker 0 gauge wire. When it comes to batteries, we're going to want to make sure that we're not just relying on the battery that we have under the hood. Yes, we can go through and upgrade that battery, but we want to make sure that we have a secondary battery in the back to help, with lights dimming or when a song really comes in and it's going to drain a lot of power. We want to make sure we have that power on reserve. So having an extra battery will definitely help your system. For the 3rd mistake that people make when getting into car audio, we're going to be looking at the file quality. When looking at the file quality, we're not talking about the type of music you listen to, whether it be dubstep, country, jazz, hip hop. Not the type, but the file quality itself. I see a lot of mistakes where people are downloading songs from the internet, but they're not the highest quality. And if you're not having high quality audio files to start with, then you're kind of just setting yourself back when you're setting up your system, because you're going to get, mids and highs that don't sound very bright and clear. You're going to get muddy bass. That's one of the biggest. Muddy bass can hurt your system if not tuned properly. So we want to make sure we're starting out with a good foundation and making sure we're using something like Spotify, Apple Music, or if we are going to download our files, making sure that they're a high quality file to ensure that we don't hurt our system. For number 4 on the list, we're going to be looking at your radio settings. So when looking at your radio, you want to make sure that your radio is properly tuned for your system. What that means is you want to be using between 75% to 90% of the maximum volume on your radio. Now, there are some radios out there that you can go to 100% and have no distortion, like a lot of Pioneers do that. But what I mean by that is if you're using, the max volume is volume 20, you want to make sure that your radio is tuned properly to use, let's say level 15 to 17 on the radio. So if you have it on, say, volume 4 and your radio goes to 20, and that's all you can turn it up, and if you turn it up anymore, you start getting that muddy sound, that distortion sound, That means our radio is not tuned properly for our system. And I see this mistake a lot of times. People think they can just crank the bass up on their radio settings and just turn everything max volume on their settings, but that can actually damage our system. We can set our system up to actually blow without tuning it properly. So we want to make sure that the radio settings we have are correct for the system that we're running. For the fifth and final mistake that most people make when getting into car audio, we're going to be looking at the amplifier settings. When looking at your amplifier, you want to make sure things like gain, subsonic filter, low pass filter, bass boost are all tuned properly for your system. You don't want to max out your gain, turn it all the way up. That's going to introduce distortion into your system, which can eventually hurt or blow your subwoofers. Things like subsonic filter, we want to make sure that's tuned properly to the enclosure that we're running. I actually have a video on my channel going through each setting on an amplifier to show you what I have set on my system and how to properly decide where you should put it for your system. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any other common mistakes that you see people make, or if you want to talk about the common mistakes that you had when you first got into the car audio scene, drop those down below in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on the videos that I drop. And until next time, I'm out.